Before we hit the road, let's make sure your car is safe. Yes, you're all your ships up. Before we hit the road, let's make sure your car is safe. Why don't we get in?
Kyle just finished a project for his high school media class. The project is a video about how to pass the driving test. His classmates went for a drive with a DMV examiner to learn about the rules of the road. The examiner gave them a lot of information. Kyle learned a great deal while editing the project. He was so confident that he scheduled an appointment to take his driving test as soon as he turned 16. Let's see how he did.
Okay, turn off your engine, please.
So how'd I do?
Well, you made a few mistakes.
Mistakes? But I learned so much making the video, and I studied the DMV handbook.
Studying the handbook is great, and I really enjoyed your video, by the way. But there's more to being a good driver. You need to be able to apply your knowledge behind the wheel.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So I passed, though, right?
Well, the mistakes you made weren't serious, but you did make more than what is allowed for passing. I'm so sorry, Kyle.
I didn't pass? I can't believe it. What happened?
There are just some things you need to work on. And you know what? We can go over them right now if you like. It'll really help on your next test.
Yeah, I guess I could use the help.
I'll tell you what, while you were making your video, we made one too. We talked to DMV examiners about why some people don't do well on driving tests. And it turns out there's some common mistakes like the ones you made. Shall we take a look?
Yeah, sure, I'm ready.
Okay, let's go.
Driving in an unfamiliar area can be difficult, especially if you're taking a test. If you come across a traffic element you haven't encountered before, such as a roundabout, it may be difficult to know what to do.
They don't know which way to go. They've never seen it. They think it's just a circle middle of the road. I've seen them just cut clear across to the left instead of going around it. They'll just sit there and look at you like, what am I doing here? Which way am I supposed to go? So, I mean, like, you know, for somebody that's never seen it, it's something difficult.
Unfamiliar elements are not the only problem. Some areas have situations that require more careful observation.
We are located in a commercial area, but what a lot of people don't realize is that there is no speed limit sign posted anywhere on the road where this office is located, so they tend to go a lot faster than they should. They don't realize, and so at the end of the drive test, if it's someone who just who drove too fast on this road, then I let them know, you know, I ask them, so what do you think the speed limit is on this road? And they usually say 35, 45, and I say, why is that? Why do you think that? And they'll tell me, well, it's commercial. And I say, but where's the speed limit sign? And then they're like, well, I didn't see it. I say, exactly. So unless otherwise posted, the speed limit should be 25, right? And they're like, oh, right.
Come out a little sooner and drive the area. Look what the speed limit signs are. Look at what type of intersections are out there. Is there a lot of pedestrians? Is there high congested areas? Are there railroad tracks? Are there different things that you may have to make certain adjustments for?
Go into the area, drive around, get a feel of everything. It'll really help you calm down.
Some people think that being extra cautious will help them pass their driving test. Caution is good, but too much can create traffic hazards.
Being overcautious on a driving test is not good because it does affect the overall flow of traffic. That's a problem because It seems that when at a four-way stop, that when they come to their stop, they don't want to go ahead and go on their turn. They'd rather wait for everybody else to go and then take their turn. And the only problem with that is that it confuses the other drivers. And there's a nice rhythm usually going at four-way stops, and then they will take that rhythm out and then cause people to try to decide, are they part of this game or are they just going to sit there? And so then the examiner will usually have to say, you need to go on your turn.
You have to be assertive. You have to accept right-of-way when it is yours. Of course, make sure that it is safe to proceed. But when you're overly cautious, you tend to hesitate, and that confuses other traffic.
When they're pulling out into traffic and they're waiting for cross traffic to be clear, they tend to wait until there is no cars rather than just clear. And sometimes I think I need my binoculars or a telescope to see that oncoming car, but they will hold. And as a result, if they keep doing that, then we have to tell them, you need to go ahead and continue.
When an examiner intervenes like this on a test, it affects your score. If it's serious enough to be considered a critical error, then it's a cause for failing the test.
People drive too slow because they've been told by friends, relatives, just go ahead and drive slower than you normally do, and that way you're safe no matter what. But what constitutes a critical error on a drive test is driving too slow, and that's usually 10 miles or more under the speed limit for no apparent reason when driving conditions are good.
They just drive forward. They won't see pedestrians, they don't see cars. We have a little warning dip sign, which it says 20 miles per hour. A lot of times they won't even see the sign, which means that they're not scanning. They have tunnel vision. So they're just driving straight through, and they'll get marked a point. Wouldn't be fail, but it would be a point to go through that dip more than 20 miles per hour.
There's a tailgater. We'll notice them in the side mirror, but they'll be driving looking straight ahead, not paying attention. The guy behind is flashing his lights, and the driver doesn't even notice. When I drive out there, I'm always constantly looking. I'm always thinking ahead. Just because you have the right-of-way, it doesn't mean others are going to let you have it.
You don't know what other cars or what the drivers of the other cars see. You can't really depend on the other cars to make the proper decision for you, so you've got to be on the lookout. When you're approaching an intersection, you should be what we call scanning, both left and right. Right turns, you have to be aware of pedestrians that might be on your immediate right side or pedestrians that are coming towards you from ahead. Left turns, you've got to be aware of traffic that's moving into your path. Residential areas, there's lots of parked cars. There might be kids playing in the street, people pulling out of driveways, lots of cars in a DMV parking lot. People leaving, people coming.
And if an individual does not turn and look at something that may be a potential hazard, the examiner again will tell them, you need to slow down, that car doesn't look like it's going to stop. Let's be prepared for that. And so most of the time they're like, what car? You need to keep those eyes moving all the time.
And I would say that that's the most important part of driving, is the scanning, because basically that's what's going to save your life.
So the examiners talk about points and critical errors. How's that work?
This is what happens. The examiner is there to observe how safely you drive and how you obey traffic laws. If you do something incorrect, such as not scanning or checking a blind spot, but it doesn't pose a serious safety hazard, that's a 1-point deduction. You can lose a certain number of points and still pass. But if you lose more than that number, then you don't pass.
Like I did.
Now, a critical error is something that involves a more serious hazard. If you demonstrate that you don't have good control of the vehicle, if you don't understand traffic laws, or if you don't know how to respond appropriately to a traffic situation, these are usually critical errors. If the examiner has to intervene to tell you what to do, or another driver has to take evasive action to prevent an accident, that's definitely a critical error. And it only takes one critical error to fail the test.
Ouch.
One of the things that does affect a driving test is when an applicant appears in a vehicle that they just borrowed for that day for the driving test. This does affect their test from the beginning to the end. At the beginning of a drive test, we ask the applicant to locate certain items in their vehicle, and when they borrow a vehicle, they don't know where these items are.
Well, say for instance, it's a rainy day and we're driving along and you don't turn your windshield wipers on. Well, I want you to be the one to turn them on your own. So I'll wait a few minutes, but then if we are driving and I'm thinking, okay, I can barely see out of the windshield, I'm sure that my driver can't, I will eventually say, please turn your windshield wipers on. And when that happens, you know, basically the drive test is over.
Sometimes I get applicants that come in that have never driven this car before. They're just not familiar with their brake. Different vehicles have different sensitivity, you know, as far as how much pressure to apply. And sometimes they apply too much pressure. Now you're doing this type of thing, you know. You come back with your neck sore. You know, so and now they're getting points deducted because they're not braking smoothly.
Or it could be just that they're unfamiliar with the car because parking brakes are in different areas in vehicles. The car they're used to has a handbrake, but the car they're in is controlled by the foot, and I've had them reach down and try and push it with their hand, and I'm thinking, no, look how it is, and what do you need to do? And then I've literally had to say, you put your foot on there and push it down, because they really don't know.
Come in with a car that you've been practicing with. You're already nervous for the drive test, and just you don't need more things to complicate the drive test itself. Make it simple as possible on yourself. Bring the same car. That way your comfort level is always better.
People who come in for their driving test and have not actually prepared for their driving test will demonstrate that on the road. When we get an ambulance, an individual sometimes panics and they don't know what to do, so they either just stop in their lane or they'll just continue on like they don't hear it.
They're nervous, so they'll come and they'll get that tunnel vision. They're not thinking about what they're doing. They're just kind of focused on one thing rather than taking it all in, seeing the whole situation and reacting to the road conditions at that time.
I just had one recently over at the railroad crossing where we were stopped and the individual actually stopped beyond the marker indicated by the limit line, and what they did was they waited, and so I had to talk them through it. We're going to look left and right, see how close that train is, because we're going to be hit, quite frankly, so we need to get out of that position.
Some applicants have trouble with their ability to control the vehicle, such as backing up in a straight line.
They think I'm backing in a straight line and they have to really move the steering wheel. Well, really moving the steering wheel really moves the vehicle, and that's how we end up hitting curbs, going up on top of curbs.
Hitting the curb is a disqualification on the test. Also, when backing up, turn your head to look behind you.
We have an awful lot of people who do that, who look right out the driver window while they're reversing their car. And that's an automatic fail, and it should be, because that's pretty dangerous. If somebody crosses the back path of your car, you've nailed them.
Get the handbook, study material, find out what is going to be required on the drive test, and prepare yourself for that. Get out there and drive. The best way to prepare is the actual practical experience. So get out there, experience different road conditions. If you live in a real rural community, go downtown.
And that way when they come in, they are comfortable and they're not trying anything new out there.
And you lost another point for slowing down unnecessarily at an intersection.
Oh, I remember that. It was because when I went up to the crosswalk, I thought there was a stop sign there, too.
It sounds like maybe you weren't scanning enough to see that there was no traffic control in your direction.
I guess not. But it seems like whenever I do go to a crosswalk, there's either a stop sign or something there.
In some areas, yes. This area just happened to be a little different.
So, would it still be bad to slow down anyway, just to be on the safe side?
Well, in this situation, Kyle, if someone had been behind you, it could have been hazardous for you to slow down for no apparent reason. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, so far, we've gone over areas in which people tend to be unprepared. The next few reasons are specific traffic violations that show up frequently on driving tests. Let's take a look.